Good afternoon. Good afternoon. That's what I'm talking about. Hello, welcome. My name is Dr. Renee Robinson, and I am the Interim Dean for the College of Communication and the Arts. I am thrilled to have you here. I believe you might have heard a little something, I think in October, that we launched softly, ever so gently, this amazing place called a Center for Sport Media. Well, today we are no longer soft launching. We are Seton Hall, College of Communication and the Arts, Center for Sport Media. I am also thrilled to be able to say that this is our first inaugural event, one that you might have also heard a little something about, that involves one Mr. Alex Rodriquez and a little something called Beyond Baseball. Very exciting. I would also, before we get started, like to simply call attention to some very special people that made this event possible, as well as gives this opportunity to our students. I'd like to start with President Nair. Our Provost, Dr. Katia Passerini. We are also fortunate to have board members with us, as well as colleagues, deans, and cabinet members. But most of all, we have you with us, students and alum, who helped make this possible. So thank you for that. That's right, give yourself a hand. I'd only like to take another moment to have the opportunity to express my gratitude on behalf of Seton Hall and the College of Communication and the Arts to Mr. Bob Ley, a man who is dedicated to our institution, dedicated to our college, and I can honestly say, so dedicated to students. Without him, this event would not have been possible, and the launching of the Center for Sport Media would not have been possible at all. So thank you for that, Bob. One other tiny little thing I want to mention. So with the Center for Sport Media, we've been setting rather quietly because we wanted to unveil to you today who is our executive director of the Center for Sport Media. If I could ask Ms. Jane McManus to stand. You'll have an opportunity to work with her starting in May, so look her up. She's in Arts and Sciences Hall in my suite area. That's 202 for those of you interested in sport media. Last but not least, without further ado, I'd like to turn our event over to our MC, a person who really needs no introduction, but is an amazing mentor, student, colleague, friend, pal, and just an overall advocate for who we are as a journalist and a sport media expert, Mr. B.J. Schechter.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson. Thank you all for being here. And to the many others who saw the vision for the Center for Sports Media and who helped make it a reality. I came to Seton Hall about 5 years ago with a primary goal, and the primary goal was to help build that center, to build a transformative Center for Sports Media to educate and to, more importantly, prepare our students for the next wave of media. Where are we going? Bob Ley doesn't even know. It's changing by the minute. We've done the work to get here, and now this is where the hard work really begins. And it begins with all of you, our first in our class of our center this fall. When someone tells you something is impossible, you get to work, to collaborate, to prove them wrong. We saw that firsthand down the road a couple weeks ago when St. Peter's University made a Cinderella run to the Elite Eight, and our own Shaheen Holloway, the leader, the visionary behind that magical run, who refused to believe anything that people told him when it was not possible. 2.5 years ago, we sat in this very room and we put on our last in-person event. How great is it to be here today in person again? The world has changed a lot since that day in November of 2019. but we're really proud to be here today for an informative and an entertaining event with one of the most accomplished baseball players in history on and off the field. Today's program is about our students. Every piece of today is built around them. From this event here to individual workshops that Alex is doing with our students. He did one with our communication, the art students, and our student athletes. And when I tell you, was he not only locked in, so are our students. It was engaged, and what a gift to all our students that we can give them. He's graciously given his time to us, in our college, the university, the athletic department, and our partners in Stillman School of Business. This program today is being live streamed on Pirate Sport Network. It's being directed and produced by students. And our students have played a pivotal role in every piece of the program. But before we bring up our special guest, I would like to introduce our co-hosts today, two Seton Hall alums who have come back to make today possible. When I first came to Seton Hall, Pat Lyons kept telling me I needed to talk to this guy named Bardia. He bled blue, Pat said, and he cared deeply about Seton Hall. So I called him one day, and we spent 15 minutes on the phone, and, I started to see, that, yes, he did bleed blue, and he cared deeply, about Seton Hall. He also cared deeply about educating the next generation of students. Bardia is a 1995 graduate of Seton Hall, and he cut his teeth at WSOU, where he was sports director. He went on to have a tremendous career and is still in it in sports broadcasting. He's won 5 Emmy Awards, first starting out at the NFL Network, and is now vice president of production for Fox Sports. He oversees studio production for Major League Baseball, Big Noon Kickoff, and Fox's Big East and Big Ten basketball shows. He's formed deep relationships with much of the talent he's worked with, including today's special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Bardia Shah-Rais. Our second co-host needs no introduction. Everybody is familiar with his outstanding work and success and excellence over the years. But what most of you don't know about Bob Ley is the person he is, the caring, empathetic, outstanding teacher and mentor. Early in my first year at Seton Hall, I was called to a meeting in Arts and Sciences in the dean's office. And Bob and I locked eyes in a conference room, and we shook hands, and we disappeared into a corner. And it was like we were speaking a different language than everybody else, and we've continued to have that special conversation over the last 5 years. Bob could be doing a lot of things right now, sitting on a beach, traveling the world, kicking his feet up, but he's chosen to be here, not only today, not only with his lead gift to the Center for Sports Media, but to be an active leader in the center and educate our students. We are all better for it. I've been lucky enough to work very closely with Bob on everything we've done to this point in building the Center for Sports Media, but I'm even luckier to call him a colleague, confidant, and friend. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Bob Ley.
The hall is about family and coming home. How long have we known each other? 30 plus years? Yes. Knew this kid when he was in high school. This is a thrill. This is our first official event under the umbrella of the Center for Sports Media. Seton Hall and Sports Media. You don't have to go far to start to find the connections. Tonight, we're all going to watch the national championship game. Who's doing the national color? Billy Raftery, former coach, right? I can think back to a phone call I got when I was 24 years of age in 1980, in our first year of covering the tournament. My boss, Scotty Connell, calls me and says, we need somebody to help Vital in the studio where you're hosting. Dick can't do it all, even though he thinks he can. He says, can you think of anybody? I said, I don't think we're going to be in the tournament this year or next year. I said, but Billy Raftery's a pretty good talker. There's his career. That's tremendous. And we've stayed good friends. 4 days ago, this campus was the center of the basketball world as we welcomed one of our own home after perhaps the best story of the last several years. in college basketball. Shaheen Holloway coming back as our head basketball coach. And today, Alex Rodriquez. We were just watching Alex in close work with about 15 students, and it was incredibly fulfilling to watch. I think everybody got something out of that session. Now, we're about to show you a video. What you need to know about this video is that we didn't send it out to a production house. How did we do this?
You reached out, and we had 3 students that go to school here produce it, which was great. And the 3 are Christian, Ronnie, and Liam. If you guys could stand up. It was their brainchild, soup to nuts. They wrote it, they edited it. It was all their creative being, and couldn't be more proud to see that product.
It's as good a product as you'll see anywhere, and so it is to introduce today's guest, who has been so generous with his time. A good conversation ahead, and questions and answers as well. Ladies and gentlemen, let's learn a little bit more, as if we don't know so much already about Alex Rodriquez.
First major league at bat for Alex Rodriquez, first pick in the entire draft. He's a couple of weeks shy of his 19th birthday.
No one knew what was in store for this young kid, with the expectation of being nothing but perfect.
3-2 pitch. Curveball belted deep to left field, and Alex Rodriquez has number 1 in the show.
It's a fact. Everything's bigger in Texas. Don't believe me? Just ask A-Rod. 10 years, $252 million, making him by far the highest paid player in the history of team sports.
With every success came its critics, and with every critic came an opportunity to prove them wrong.
Alex driving it to right center. Could it be? Number 300 for Alex Rodriquez. High drive, right field. Gone. It is number 500.
He did it in style. He joins the 3,000 hit club with a home run.
It is a crisp evening here in the Bronx. Now Joe Tim is coming right up at his game number 6. To the second baseman, Cano. The Yankees are back on top. World champions for the 27th time.
I've given these fans a lot of headaches over the years, and I've disappointed a lot of people, but like I've always said, you don't have to be defined by your mistakes. How you come back matters too, and that's what New York's all about.
After building a legacy on the field, his empire continues to reach new heights.
Alex Rodriquez and close friend billionaire Mark Lowry are buying the Timberwolves from Glenn Taylor. Taylor will have full control of the club for 2 years before Rodriguez and Lowry take control in 2023.
But going back to Bryce Harper, his body's different, he looks stronger, he looks fit, and what he did in spring training was totally different than what he did last year.
Oh my God.
So I'm going to make this investment as convertible debt. Okay. I'm going to offer you $200,000 for 20%.
And after 40 years in baseball, his crowning achievement remains at home. Now, introducing World Series champion, A-Rod Corp chairman and CEO, 2-time Emmy Award winner, and proud father, Alex Rodriquez.
A Center for Sports Media welcome for Alex Rodriquez. Welcome.
Bardia, thank you. Wow, that video was awesome. The three guys. Can we stand up? Who are these three guys? Thank you very much. Bob and Bardia, I want to use that video when I travel the globe giving speeches, and there must be a royalty that must come your way. Don't let Bob and Bardia take 10%, okay?
Goes right to the center. Oh. Hey, thanks for being here today. I hope you had that first session. Some great conversations going on upstairs. We're sitting here 3 days from opening day. Was there a point in the last 6-8 weeks, 2-3 months, where you thought we might not have an opening day in baseball? As you were watching everybody fighting for the scraps of billions of dollars, what was going through your mind?
Yeah, Bob, I don't think I had a doubt that we would have a day. I didn't know when. I could have seen a world where we could have missed half the season. But with all the kind of geopolitical stuff that's going on around the world, obviously COVID, one of the worst things that have happened to this, since I've been around, and certainly probably the last century, we did not need a world and the optics of billionaires fighting with millionaires. So I'm very happy that baseball's back.
Where is your game in the strata of American sports? We see the NFL raking in billions in media rights. We see basketball sweeping the globe. We know about soccer. Is baseball retreating to a regional basis? Is it still a national game? Is it growing the way you would like to see it grow?
I think the baseball is still our national pastime, and there's this enormous audience out there. It's skewing a little bit older, right? It's the average fan, unfortunately, is about a 59-year-old white male. But, through some adversity, there's some opportunities. And I think Rob Manfred is in a tremendous position to have a paradigm shift in our game. I think as time, we were talking earlier, Bob, when the three of us were growing up, baseball was by far number one. And the two young little brothers called NFL and NBA, they weren't even formed yet fully. They were trying to figure out who they were. And baseball was thriving. And, we grew up in a world where we know guys by first name: Nolan, Randy, Junior, Poppy, A-Rod, Ricky. We know who these names are. I do Sunday games. I couldn't tell you 5 people in each roster. So I think we have to do something where they tell us how long our game is. Well, let's shift that. In a world where content is king, we should be the kings of the world because we play 200 games in 232 days. So revealing stories, bringing people inside the clubhouse, bringing people inside the batting cages, the sound of baseball, the smell of baseball, the stickiness of the pine tar. We have this incredible story to tell, and we as baseball are in a straitjacket with 2 hands tied behind our back.
Who's doing this? Who can unlock this?
I think it always starts at the top, right? It starts with the commissioner, Rob Manfred and Tony Clark. I think they have some momentum. They just finally got a deal done. And take that momentum and double down on your wins. How can you work together here for the next 5 or 7 years to do some naughty things? Be provocative, right? And content. You got to reveal stories. We got to tell stories, and they got to work together.
Certainly, you came into the bigs in '94, which was the year, of course, the World Series was canceled. Let me take you back, July 8th, 1994, I believe it was at Fenway Park, right? You are 13 months removed from high school graduation. You're about to get your first Major League Baseball start. And Tom Verducci writes this for Sports Illustrated. There you are, 18. Rich Gossage is, 43 is on your team with the Mariners. What'd you say to him as you walked by him before the game? You nervous, kid?
Yeah, probably I'm sorry. Or,
yeah. I think are you nervous, kid?
Yeah.
You're 18. How do you get to a point, you have to focus, you have to apply all your gifts and skills, that about to debut in the bigs at 18, you're able to make that kind of a joke and then deliver?
Well, the joke, yes. I don't know about delivering. And
you made 3 good plays in the field, I'm told, that day.
Bob, the thing is, sometimes they say it all the time, right? Fake it till you make it. And that was what I was trying to do. I was a few months removed from my high school prom. I was playing at Westminster Christian in front of 300 people, and now I'm playing in front of 38,000 people and facing Roger Clemens. And my knees were shaking. And I'm like, what the hell did I do to deserve to be here? I dreamt my whole life about being here, and now I want to go back home to be with my mom. It was so damn scary, And look, we're all going to have imposter syndrome. It happened to me in baseball. It happened to me in dating. It happened to me in business. It's going to continue to happen. And sometimes you got to say, screw it, man. You know what? I can do it. But that only works if you put the work in, right? The reason why I'm always going to bet big on someone like Bardia and Bob is I know they're going to do the due diligence. I know they're going to do the hard work. And what this university is doing and trying to think bigger and have a bigger mission and bigger kind of goals, it starts with a big vision, the clarity, the culture. And I was faking it until I made it, I guess.
I'm going to read you something from March 22nd, 1993. As the ball left Alex Rodriguez's aluminum bat, 63 stopwatches started their split-second counts. His toe touched first base. The timers clicked in unison. The draft day race had begun, period. Sports Illustrated, your first mention in SI, you were 17. So now, what is it like at a young age like that? And that the media template was different. We didn't have the explosion of platforms and technologies, but here we are. Early 90s, you're a teenager, to live in that with that scrutiny.
Baseball America, I'm sure the students, none of you have ever heard of this.
Great publication.
But some of the parents, Baseball America was like the Bible for a high school student or a college baseball player. And it would come out about every 2 weeks. And about day 9 of the 2 weeks, I would start going to 7-Eleven every day, hoping that it would get there a little early. And that was a huge deal to be in Baseball America. And I read I hated reading. I read every single word of Baseball America, looking for my name. We were narcissists before Instagram and selfies. But then Sports Illustrated, they came out every Thursday.
Yeah.
And, my mom said if I had straight A's, we would subscribe, and we never subscribed. But the point is I would always go see it. And when I saw myself in Sports Illustrated, I said, oh, my God. Like, that was a moment that was really important to me. The other moment, Bob and Bardia, was when I wore the USA uniform representing the U.S. And it was the Junior Olympic team and the pride that I felt in the Junior Olympic team in Tyler, Texas. And I said, oh, my God, now I was a rising junior. I was the only rising junior. Everybody else in the roster was rising seniors. And I looked around and I said, okay, I actually feel pretty good here. And I didn't have too much of an imposter syndrome then. And then I came back my senior year, and I said, okay, you know what? It's like Back to the Future, the picture got clearer. I said, I have a path to be a major league player one day if I don't screw this up.
That first mention in SI in 1993, you know who's on the cover?
No idea.
Doc Gooden. Wow. Who at the age of 19, if you're not a big baseball fan, of course you are if you're here today with Alex, but Doc Gooden in 1984 and 85 as a teenager just tore up pitching. He had some of the epic seasons. But here we are in 93. He's in his late 20s, and the question on the table for a guy who came into the bigs as a teenager was, does he have anything left? Is it blown out already? Mm-hmm. Cautionary tale there. And there you are a few pages away inside. Amazing stuff.
The juxtaposition of that is pretty crazy.
We're going to talk about the media because this guy I know is in your ear. Having grown up with that scrutiny, having been covered by the media, having seen the way media has exploded in this country, now being a member of the media with a national megaphone in that regard, you have an unusual perspective, and I'd like to get your thoughts on it. What do we do well in the media, and what do we need to really improve on?
Well, I mean, that's such a loaded question, Bob, and a lot to unpack. I mean, I think the world where you came from, journalism was defined different than today. I remember talking to my colleague at Fox, Ken Rosenthal, and he said back in the day when he wrote for, I believe, Baltimore.
Sun, right? Yeah.
He said, the editor, we had to have like 4, off the record, on the record. You had to get all these fact
sources,
checks. You had all these sources. Yeah. And the world today is, write later, tweet first, and check later. So that's a very scary world today. And some of this noise around fake news stuff on the political world is funny, but there is a lot of that going on. So I think as a young writer, if you can be really kind of stick to the fundamentals, stick to the relationships, and be a little bit more conservative. I call that long-term greedy. I think is really important. Tell them you're busy.
Or sell.
But Bob, the one thing that, you know, Bardia is not only my producer at Fox, but has become one of my best friends in the world, is that when you trust, and it's amazing what we can do in life when we trust someone, we respect someone, and when we like someone. Whether as a teacher, a coach, a mentor, if I trust and respect you, and you guys, I see you nodding, you go through a wall for somebody. But if you don't have those characteristics where you're not trusted, you're not respected, and you're not liked, everything you say, I'm going to first put on the brakes, think about it, talk to my mentor, someone that I do trust, and say, hey, Bob, what do you think? Bardia told me this, well, you know. And so that's really, really important to find yourself as you kind of go into the next chapter of your life, is where are the people that you respect and trust and like, and put money in the back burner till you're at least 30. Now, you want to pay your bills, maybe have a roommate, of course, but there's nothing that'll have a better ROI, return on your investment of time, of being around those people that you respect. And we're an average of the 5 people we're surrounded with. And like a magnet, it either attracts you up or brings you down.
You know, we see that in real life around the TV desk. I've been fortunate in my career to work with a lot of people who become, as you guys are, very close friends. The people literally in your ear when they're producing, you know what that's like. And when you're live, you're at Fenway and you're 6 feet from Red Sox fans, right? Mm-hmm. Yelling stuff. You've got a producer in the truck who's keeping it all together. How do you assemble and nurture a group of people like that, with Alex a key part of that? And you've got these iconic players. You've got time constraints. You've got editorial constraints. You have to entertain, and you're in charge.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think what we try to do is find people that buy in, first and foremost. I remember the first time that we met with Alex. This was back in 2015. My boss at the time, we came out and we met with you in New York. And we were just honest. We laid out, this was kind of the vision. This was the day. This was the schedule. This was the pay. You're obviously not going to get rich doing it. You'd probably take a massive pay cut, which we were right. And, you know, if this was for you, great. If not, no hard feelings. And you bought into it. And I'll never forget, I remember we were driving back, and then our big boss at the time, the president of the company, called us. He goes, hey, how'd the meeting go with Alex? We're like, well, he's still going to play. Doesn't really have a desire to do TV. And I don't know if it's going to work financially. And he goes, thanks for wasting, you know, a trip to New York. But in all seriousness, we wound up speaking, and make a funny long story shorter was you made the last out in the wild card game, and then my boss at the time, we were like 2 kids trying to figure out when is the right time to reach out to you. And it's almost like you're trying to ask the girl out, like, do you want to reach out right away and look desperate, or do you want to play it cool and look like you don't really care? So at one point, we're just like, let's just text them, and that's really how it happened. But we try to find people that really want to buy in to what we want to do, and here's the vision, and we're lucky enough to have them.
Because the question I have, you have so many things going on in your life after your playing career ended, and we'll talk about it. I mean, you currently have the interest in the Timberwolves, your real estate, the A-Rod Corporation. What is the attraction for sitting and talking? I mean, it's a game we all love, a game that you have, just been excelled at for decades. But what's the attraction for you in the matrix of what's going on in your life?
With the Timberwolves?
No, with doing baseball media. Let's start with that. Because, as you said, you're not going to get rich unless you're doing NFL play-by-play these days. And we can talk about that.
Yeah.
Where the heck is that money coming from?
No, look, I think, Bob, I've been so blessed in my life, thank God, that I'm able to do things that I'm incredibly passionate about. Now, Ashley's on my team, and thank God her phone rings a lot, and she pretty much knows now what are the things that are important to me. And baseball is my first love, and I have an incredible passion for baseball. I have an investment in baseball that I wanted to win big. I'm incredibly bullish about baseball. If you think about 200 years from now, I think it'll be rich, it'll be great, it'll be awesome. Short term, I have some concerns. There's some major headwinds against us right now. But I love that stuff because that's opportunity. And we need someone up at the top, like you have a president here now today, that's changed the paradigm of Seton Hall. We kind of need Rob to do that for Major League Baseball. And you got to be bold, and you got to take chances, and you got to be comfortable in your skin. And I think it's really important. I think, Bob, going back real quick to what you asked Bardia, For some of us in the room, for some of y'all in the room that are youngsters, kind of, below the age of 25, what made my relationship with Fox for the last 7 years is Bardia and John Enns flying cross country to meet with me in person. Now, some of you may think it's easier to do it on Zoom or on Snapchat or Instagram. Don't forget that the thing that's irreplaceable, the reason why Bob Ley has been a titan for the last 3 decades, is the ability to connect with human beings. And when Bardia showed me the respect to fly cross country, take me to lunch, and talk about the values, the mission, the culture, I bought into that. But I bought into that because there was trust and there was a connectivity. And you can only do that in person. Young people, I tell this to my folks at A-Rod Corp all the time. They're tired of hearing me on our Monday morning huddles. You can't build culture over Zoom. It's hard to build trust over Zoom. And for the young people, we want them in the room because we want to teach them. No matter how big the deal, we can be doing a multi-billion-dollar deal. I want one of our young 23, 24-year-olds in the room to listen, because the only way you get better is you got to get at bats. You can't read about it. You got to play. You got to get at bats and reps.
Something he told me quite often when we began working with Fox. Alex this, Alex, but he's a great flipping teammate.
Yeah.
And a television production, like a sports team, it's a very collaborative environment. And not everybody, there are people that come to the table with agendas, are there not?
Yeah, I mean, the perception when we didn't even know you was, all right, he's going to come here and he's going to have 16 assistants, his own person. I mean, you came with one person. We told you the meeting was at 1 o'clock. You said, I'll be there at 12:30. Could I just have a researcher there with me, and could I have a layout of the show? Which is great. You care about making sure the show's good, making sure the other analysts shine. I mean, there's a clip that we showed in the video that the 3 guys put together. We had a bet with David Ortiz, where if the Yankees lost to the Red Sox in the playoffs, that you would put on a Red Sox uniform and let them douse you with champagne. I mean, we presented that idea like you'd look at us like we were from Mars. And you're like, yeah, I'll do it. Sure, it'll be fun. That's a great teammate. That's someone who's about making sure the show is good and putting the show first and being selfless.
When you walk into a room to do something like that and you're meeting your colleagues for the first time, is there an extra burden because you're a superstar player? Do you think people say, well, we'll see what kind of a guy this is. It's just not another guy walking through the door.
I think so. But, I have 2 beautiful daughters. You saw them a little bit on the video, Natasha and Ella. And we have dinner every night, and we have breakfast clubs on Saturday, which is a 90-minute breakfast with no electronics. They hate it.
How do you do that?
Love it. We got to train. We got to be consistent. But at dinner, the rules are simple. No electronics, 1 conversation. And we make eye contact if you're not eating, right? That this old school thing called conversation. They're like, Dad, what is that, right? It's really important. But I think I tell my daughters, when you walk in the room, they're going to underestimate you because you're a woman. When you're in the room, they're not going to expect you to want to be the president of the company or the CEO. They're going to want you to take a secondary or tertiary job. So I think when I come in the room, I see that as an opportunity. And you can set the tone right away with respect, right? Being responsive on email or text, being kind, send a thank you note. I mean, I still do handwritten thank you notes. They go a long ways. You still got to connect with people. People ask me all the time. I have entrepreneurs come to me all the time. How do you raise institutional capital? If you're the president of this university, how do you go out and raise capital to make this university a better place, more desirable? Well, today's a good start because I'm the first. And you're going to have way big people that are much bigger than me. But I'm proud because we're back together in one arena, right, in one auditorium, and this is the start, hopefully, for something special. But you got to have people that trust you and like you. That's the bottom line. If they trust you and like you, there's infinite amount of things you're going to be able to do. Institutions usually take 3 years getting to know you before they hand you $1, right? So as young people, if you can, your net worth equals your network, right? Just think about that. And you build out your book over time, all of a sudden you become 35 and 40, and you know so many people that people will pay you millions and millions of dollars for your book. Now think about that. You'll remember this. They'll pay you. We're doing it. When we hire people, we're buying people's books. So relationships it's really, really important to stay connected.
Let's go back, and you'd mentioned, for so many of our students here about to be in or in their 20s, taking advantage of that decade. And there you were, coming to the majors at 18, a regular at 19. And you were not, just a few more years down the line before you began putting your flag in the business, in the sand, right? And for a very elemental reason, right? Just to have some security in your life.
Yeah, I mean, Bob, look, I come from very, very humble beginnings. My father left us when I was 10. We're 3 siblings. My brother and my sister are older. My brother's 11 years older, born on the same day, on July 27th, and my sister. And my mom had to go take 2 jobs, right? She was a secretary in the morning. She served tables at night. At nighttime, she would come. I'd be watching the Mets game, Ralph Kiner and Tim McCarver, right? And Kiner's Corner. And I would take the pouch out of my mom, and I would count the monies. And Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it was 28, 29, 30 bucks. I said, Mom, great night. You know, Thursday, Friday, Saturdays, it was 58, 59, 60, 61 bucks. And then I would give her a foot massage. And I would say, Mom, we're really rich. We got a lot of money today. And she goes, yes, and we're killing it. And then she would do something that impacted the rest of my life. My mom at the time was, probably in her 40s. She said, help me pick up the mattress. And we picked up the mattress, and we took that pouch, and we stuck the money in there. And I said, Mom, why don't we put it in the bank? She goes, son, we don't trust banks. We trust our mattress. So around that time, I was 10, 11, 12 years old, I started thinking about the importance of financial literacy and to educate our community that the way to get out of the hood is through financial literacy, education, and early on I had 2 missions. I had baseball and business. And that was my vision, that was my goal. So people say all the time, Alex, you have a great work ethic. I actually say, I think you're wrong. I've never worked a day in my life because I do everything that I would do for free. I do things that I love. On the weekends, I do exactly what I do during the week. I love sports and business. And I watch CNBC and ESPN and Fox, right? Like, that's what we do. I mean, we're like 2 nerds. We're watching like Magic Johnson documentary last night. And it's just, and it's what we do. So one of the secrets that I've learned through a lot of mistakes is pick something you love, that you're passionate, that you'll do it for free, and you'll be surprised how good you're at it.
Because it started with what, an apartment or an apartment building?
Duplex.
Duplex. Yeah. You flip it, or you get a little bit more cash on the next contract?
Yeah.
So it's that small and has grown to this size now.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple lessons there, Bob. Number one, all great things start really small. People always tell me, like, how do I get to be that big? Well, you never think about that big. You think about, I'm process-driven, not results-driven. That started with a small duplex, and I remember, Bob, when I was young, I saw the rent come up every 30 days, but it felt like every 3 days for my mom. And I felt the stress building on her because our rent was like $650. And sometimes we were short, And I remember going down and praying as I was 11 or 12 years old. And I basically said something paraphrasing, Dear God, please slow down time for my mother so we can pay the rent. And then I said, Dear God, if I ever I'm fortunate enough, I would trade places with the landlord. And sure enough, about a decade later, I was 22, 23, and I had my first opportunity to buy a duplex in which it cost $250,000. I needed a $48,000 down payment. I didn't have a lot of cash saved up, so I woke up in the middle of the night with an idea. And I grew up in Miami, 305. And I said, well, for my signing bonus, I have 2 watches, a Rolex and something else. I sold those 2 watches to raise some cash. I did a little signing to raise some more cash. And I put it together, and that was my $48,000 down payment. Sold that for double, then bought an Aplex, 60 units, and eventually we grew that portfolio to 15,000 apartment units over 14 states all over the Southeast.
And now the A-Rod Corporation with venture capital, still have a SPAC. You're an NBA owner, which we're going to talk about, which is why. But you mentioned talking about baseball and the challenges for baseball. Is an NBA team a better investment than an MLB team right now in 2022?
I think so, yes. I mean, why? If you look at the NBA, the reason why I fell in love with baseball, the NBA is doing all the things that baseball used to do. Number one is a global sport. Number 2, it has tremendous leadership with Adam Silver, Mark Tatum and company. These franchises are going up 15 to 19% a year, compounded. And you have a young demographic, and it's quick. If you guys come to Timberwolves game, shameless plug, I hope you do, we will sit down, and I go with Catherine, Ash, and Pedro to the games, and we sit down at 7:05, tip-off. 9:15, we're having dinner. I'm ordering my Merlot and a nice steak with some fries, and 9:15, we're in the bottom of the second inning. Right? So that's one of the reasons.
What do you think? The runner on second base in the 10th doesn't bother you, the ghost runner? I'm a traditionalist. I'm having trouble with the DH going away.
You know, I'm a traditionalist, Bob, but I think we are in dire situations, and I think we're losing market share. My fear is that baseball would drop to fourth soon, not third. And we have to do things that are important. I think the game has gotten so smart, it's gotten dumb. And sometimes you just got to let things roll a little bit. And, you know, contact matters. Base running matters. I mean, I grew up an 86 Mets fan, right? And you talk about, you know, contact, running the bases, toughness, gritty. Those things still play. It's not about just hitting home runs and striking out 250 times. And you have front offices that have never been in the game of baseball. They've never put on cleats. And they tell you that straight in the face, that it's okay to strike out 250 times. And I'm telling you, as a guy that's a world champion, that is the formula for disaster.
Have the nerds taken over your sport?
I
the
think
Pocket Protector Brigade. I'm sorry if there are any stats analysts here. But
look, I'm all about nerds. I hire a bunch of them, right? But you also need some old school people. I mean, to think that a guy like Lou Piniella, Billy Martin back in the day, a Buck Showalter, don't have room in the game of baseball, Dusty Baker. You need, it's always a hybrid, right? And the pendulum sometimes goes always too far to the right or too far to the left. And sometimes in a land around the 80% mark, I think we need to get back to like that 70, 80, which is a good cushion. You need the combination of nerds and old school baseball and put them together.
And you got some front offices and ownership groups that just don't want to spend money, right? I mean, payrolls of $42 million. The bottom, I think Scherzer is making more than the bottom 5 teams each.
I think the A's payroll in 1991 is the same as it is now, which is like $30 million.
In real dollars.
Yeah.
Exactly.
In 2004, our payroll was higher than the Yankees is going to be this year, or very close to it, which is crazy, right? I mean, the franchise in 2004 was probably worth $1.5 billion. Today's close to $6 billion.
Yeah.
Same salary.
With all those issues in baseball, though, there you were before you bought your interest. We're going to get to the T-Wolves in just a second, I promise. But you were making a run at the Mets. What did you learn from that informed you about either baseball or just pro sports ownership that helped you move forward with the T-Wolves?
You know, I still think in baseball, if you want to own a team, you want to own one of 7 teams, right? And that's the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Cubs, the Mets, the Dodgers, maybe San Francisco, and a few others. And then everything else is pretty much very, very difficult. But what I learned that these platforms are not sports franchises. I believe that baseball still thinks they're in the business of sports, and I think that's where they get it wrong.
Not entertainment.
Media, the football and the NBA, they realize they're a media entertainment platform. And they're these holding companies that have an incredible bunch of assets underneath, which includes the concert business, the sports media, the TV business, the gaming business, maybe an expansion business, right? There's all these businesses that are almost like an octopus underneath. And they lean into the entertainment part of it just as much as baseball. So when I saw that, I realized that Minnesota Timberwolves were buying a team that we were buying the worst house in the best neighborhood. And we thought we acquired a $5 billion asset for $1.5 billion.
$1.5 billion for 20%, then increases out. You remember, speaking of Zoom, Zoom's not all bad because it got us together about a month ago. We're talking about this day, and Bardia, what'd you say? He's set for Friday and put it on your calendar. There's going to be a Zoom. So I figured, okay, I'm going to see Alex having a colada in his backyard with the palm trees. You pop up on the screen, and there you are in your residence with the snow behind you in Minnesota. So if anybody asks, is this guy an involved owner? I can tell you, there he is, January, February. But talk about that what you see your role is, because you have such a perspective as an elite athlete, as well as being, it's your money on the line.
Yeah, I love what's going on in this university, and I love what your president's doing, right? And, when you come over and you take over a new business, the knee-jerk reaction is usually like, let's change everything, let's do a paradigm shift. And sometimes the best move is no move. You look at our team last year, very similar to our team this year. Last year we had 23 wins, and we'll end up with 46 or 47 wins this year. Like, that's an incredible lift. We're going to have about 15 sellouts. That's about probably 5 or 6 seasons combined before this year. I take COVID out. Our ratings are about 50%. And we have some great young players that are coming to themselves. But what we've done is, I think, between Glenn Taylor, the partner that's ours that's been there for 30 years, Mark Lowry and myself, is we've brought a new picture, new hope, a new mission, and hopefully a new culture as we move forward with one day building a new stadium and making this one of the most respected franchises in the world. And I think I come at it, I'm a player first, and thinking about how do we serve the players, and more importantly, how do we serve the customer every day? And I'm obsessed with serving the customer. I walk around the arena. I leave tonight to Minnesota. We play Tuesday, Thursday, and I think Sunday. We have 3 games this week, and I'll be at 2 of them, and then I'm back in New York as we have Boston and the Yankees on Sunday. But I'm obsessed. I walk around, I look at walls, and I drive my team crazy. And they're like, well, why is the walk from the locker room to the court so important? I said, because those are the last 45 seconds that a player sees and visualizes before they go into showtime. And I want those 45 seconds to be special. And on top of that, there's some epic moments that happen before and after the game. That through social media, we're going to capture it. And just like I walked in this beautiful hallway and I saw the great pictures, it made me feel good. Human beings need to feel good before you play. I believe you look good, you feel good, you play good. So we're changing the whole thing before the postseason.
What is the game experience like? You've been to games, right?
Yeah, the first time I went with them, I was lucky enough to sit courtside, and
well, yeah, sure, you know the owner. I hope you were.
And Mark Lowry, who's a great guy, who's the business partner with Alex, he was like, "Hey guys, I'm gonna go get some hot dogs and waters." And he went and got him. I sat there next to Alex, and I go, "Alex, I don't want to step out of bounds, but is it weird that the half owner of the team is getting hot dogs and waters for us?" And Alex is he's such a massive note taker. Actually, the test, it's annoying with the notes. He just writes it down. It's like halftime entertainment. It's like some dog, chasing a frisbee. Writes it down. And the night he's got 6 pages of notes. He's like, we got to fix this. There's no reason anybody sitting courtside needs to get their own waters or hot dogs. We got to improve the fan experience. So in a good way, he's maniacal as an owner, where he just doesn't see what's going on in the court, but he just wants it to be a great environment for everyone that's there as well.
And Mark Lowry, your partner, who, by the way, is from Staten Island, just about a 3-wood from here.
Yeah.
Oh, Staten Island in the house. All right. Which I knew when I was a teenager, you could get beer at age 18 over there, so we'd be going over there all the time. But he's talked about wanting to bring transparency to the organization. What does he mean by that?
I just think that we're going through this. Mark and I have a company called VCP, Vision Capital People. And the idea is, if you have a great big vision first, is an exercise that you do. You get the vision, it's clear, you can taste it, you can feel it. Then we put in the capital, right? You got to deploy capital to make these things come true. And then you got to go find the best people in the world to help run the organization. But with transparency, we're going to tell you where the holes are, where the blind spots are, what are things that we need to address. We're not going to tell and by the way, our shareholders are the fans. Our partners are the players. And I just think it was so insulting to me. Think about if I'm the president of a school, I would want to have conversations with my faculty and my student body. What can we do to be better? How can we serve the students better? I would meet with the parents of the students. How can we serve you better? So I think for us, not speaking to players, as a player, I always felt like I was just a help, right? And when you look at our P&L, our biggest expense is the players. So they're your biggest partners. When you look at our P&L, the biggest revenue drivers are the players. So it would be silly not to meet with our players, at least 3 or 4 times a year, quarterly, and say, what can we do better? Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to do everything they want us to do, but the ability to listen to people, look them in the eye and tell me, how can we make your experience better? and do the same thing with the fans, and say the same thing with the people that have been there for 25 years. I think great leadership are great listeners. And you hold and then put a thorough plan that over time is going to work out well.
How are the athletes in their early 20s? That's a young workforce in the NBA. You sign the checks, essentially. How do you find them, and how is it different when you were in your early 20s? How has the culture of athletics changed?
It's much tougher today. I am so, my goodness, thank God that I don't play in the social media era. Thought I had some meltdowns. Oh, boy.
You're out there on social media, but you produce it.
Yeah, I mean, but when you're in your 20s, the social media is a whole different ballgame. I cringe about some of the decisions I made when I was in my 20s. But you know, how are they different? Look, I think, Bob, when you're NBA is a little different because owners and players, they're like best friends, and that's a new thing, right? I come from a sport where, in many ways, baseball players and owners are fighting for a shrinking, apple, right?
Because you've got cost certainty in the NBA. The money is pretty well set.
Yeah, I mean, owners and players, there's no labor issues. It's a very simple business plan. You grow the revenue as big as possible. You want the watermelon to get really big, and then you split it in half. End of story. So it becomes much easier to collaborate together because you have economic alignment. But I think where you win is in the edges, right? If Bardia is a top-tier free agent, Bob, and you're the Knicks, and I'm Timberwolves, we're going to offer him the same exact thing. So I have to be able to win in the edges. What does that mean? Maybe our PT department is the best. We build out the best PT and medical department in baseball. We have a tremendous social media and marketing team. We build out the best world-class ESG arena where it's just green. That's really important today. And more importantly, one of the biggest opportunities for all of us, but for our players and for the league of the NBA, is with social media, people say they're distractions. I call them attractions. There's more attractions today than ever before. So one of the things we want to do is rip the social media off their hands 2 hours before they go to sleep. But if you can actually sleep better and sleep better than the opposition, the data says that you'll be a much better player. If you're sleeping 4 or 5 hours, it basically says that it's almost like driving drunk, right? So if we can get our sleep to go from 5.5, 6 hours to 8, then that means we can win an extra 2 or 3 games, which means that we can advance to the postseason or win an extra series. So focusing on things that are not just the obvious, kind of digging a little bit, and you can find 2 wins here, 2 wins there, makes a world of difference.
You talk about players and their addiction to social media, and I've not observed this, but my friends who cover the NBA say game's over, guys come in, they dive to their lockers. What are they saying? Did I have a good game? Did I have a bad game? How do you approach a conversation with one of your top 4 or 5 players? Like, man, it's not a productive thing to do. I mean, but it's ingrained in. If you're 22, it's ingrained in you. If you're a young person, that social media, that feedback, that adrenaline. And here you are saying if you can step back from it, there's success to be had.
Well, I think you have to be measured in your leadership skills, right? Like the train has left. They're going to be on social media. They're going to be active on Twitter, right? So I think you have to be able to describe to them that social media is like a weapon. It can work in your favor. It can work against you. Be very careful and respectful with that tool. Now we have, because I don't trust myself, we have an army of people on our team that vet stuff before I put it out. Because I'll put it out there and I'll be in trouble overnight, right? And most of the time they're like, red, no. And whatever I put out is like, I've had like 7 no's. And so you create...
There's a precedent that could have used that team, by the way, on social media.
So getting guardrails around some of these young people. You're going to be much better off with guardrails than trying to say, like, don't do this, or they don't want to, step off my lawn kind of thing.
Well, his social media, Instagram is closing in on 4 million, over closing in on 2 million on Twitter. You're working at Fox. That's a heck of a tool to have his social media.
Yeah, we bug him all the time, and his social media guys, Jason Dovitz, who used to work at Fox, that Alex, borrowed. Stole. I would say that. Made a better offer. And we, whenever we post something or we do something and Alex asks, hey, could we use that and post it? We're like, absolutely. Like, here's the content. We'd love it because it gives us 20 more million eyeballs than we normally get.
You mentioned your upcoming baseball Sunday. The voice of the profile that we saw that our students put together, Michael Kay. You guys are doing the alternate baseball. Nothing succeeds like success in the most best form of television is imitation, right? And so the Manning cast works. Here comes the A-Rod cast, you and Michael. What do you hope to achieve with that?
I think to educate and entertain. It's interesting. The first year that Bardia recruited me for Fox, I think I shared that story. I was in the West Village, and I walked to a restaurant, and it was jam-packed. And I had just done the Mets against Kansas City. Remember that World Series in 2015? And I'm walking to the restroom, and I feel like there's like 7 or 8 people that just stood up, ironically, at the same time. Maybe coincidence, but I was maybe not. And then you hear them, and they're kind of closing in. And I go to the restroom, and I'm using the restroom, and I use the restroom, then I'm washing my hands, and I have like 7 of us tell them, hey, can I start taking a picture with you? And I said,
in the restroom?
In the restroom.
I draw the line there.
It's a little uncomfortable. I said, maybe we'll do it outside. And they started going in on some of the things that I said on television that they were sharing with their mom and their dad or their girlfriend on things that I made on a point I made on Harvey or maybe David Wright. And I said, holy smokes, like the power of media. What I realize is when you hit a home run at Yankee Stadium, a fan can really like it, but it's not as relatable. When you make a connection through articulating and conveying a message, and you've lived this your whole life, Bob, is you can actually connect at a much deeper level when it's intellectually. And that point you said really helped me understand something. So there's like a connection there. And I said, holy smokes, the power of media and the forum of Fox is really interesting. So I think I started looking at it with a lot more responsibility. So if you can entertain, educate about something we love, what's great about sports and music, it brings people together in a world that's so divided. And we get to talk about, if you're watching us, you love baseball. So even if you think I'm a dummy or you don't like me or you're not a Yankee fan, you know one thing. I love baseball. I prepared for this cast, and I'm going to give you my best. And at the same time, we're going to have a little laugh. And if you can learn one thing that you didn't know, then that's a win for us.
Yeah, we always say entertain and inform. Like, we don't want baseball to turn into a math class when we're doing the show.
That's a careful calculation that you learn to make on the fly, though, right? Should I hold that for the next inning? Is it time now to drop that in? I mean, that comes from a partnership. I mean, you know Michael for years, so I can't wait to see these shows.
Well, Michael Kay is as good as it gets. Yeah. He's a dear friend of Bardia and I, and I'm so lucky. You know, when I told Jimmy Patero at ESPN, look, I don't have the time, I don't have the bandwidth to do another 30 Sundays. I just can't do it. My girls are getting older. I have a junior and an 8th grader, and it's important for me to be home. And I have a wonderful relationship with Cynthia, who's the best mom that I know. And I said, I need to be home. And he said, great, okay, well, we'll figure something else out. And he came up with this cast, right, like the Mannings. And we're doing 8 Sundays and a couple games. So I'm really excited. But let me tell you about dreams and why it's so important for you all to dream big. And I'm talking to the youngsters in the room and some of us that are a little bit older as well. You know, there's a school down the street called Fordham. Many years ago, there was 2 freshmen that sat in a cafeteria having lunch. One guy says, boy, one day I am going to be the voice of the New York Yankees. The guy goes, yeah, whatever. The other guy says, yeah, I'm going to be the voice of the New York Knicks. Both those guys were freshmen at Fordham. One is Michael Kay, the other one is Michael Bream. But it started with a dream and being bold enough to tell people your dream. And I just love that story. And Michael is, to young people in New York, younger, he's the Vin Scully of what Vin was for Bardia, people in L.A. And he's a really important part of the culture of baseball and sports in New York.
And you know where Vin went to school? Fordham.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. The legacy at that school is remarkable. What do you think? I'm going to get your thoughts on how baseball has handled this sign stealing stuff, because it takes us inside not just the mechanics of the game and the advantage you would have if you have to sit on on a heater or wait for somebody to try and break something off on the corner, but the way baseball handled it. Carlos Beltran has said as much, and he's going to be doing some Yankee games, I believe, this year, that he believes there's a stain on the 2017 Astros championship. Brian Cashman said, don't get on us for not going to the World Series. I think the deck was stacked against us in 2017. Beltran was the only player named in baseball's report. As you look at that, well, let me ask you the first baseball question. You're a hell of a hitter. If you know you're sitting on a heater, how much better of a hitter are you? You don't have to worry about it. That tub gets thumped in the hallway, and you pretty well know it's a fastball.
Yeah, no, I think it just makes an average hitter good, a good hitter great, and if you give it to a great hitter, you're going to see numbers you've never seen before. It's just. I'll tell you a story that happened to me at Fenway Park. Where's Pedro? Pedro's my friend. He's probably sleeping already. Pedro's a big Red Sox fan. He's a great friend of mine, and it's about 2009, the year we won the championship. Is about the seventh inning. I'm taking the long walk on Fenway to the undecked circle from the dugout. And we have a great, young, dynamic bat boy, probably 16 years old, but he knows everything about everything. And I said to him, you're going to be a future GM. I was so impressed with his talent. Pitcher comes in, right-hander, to face me, just one hitter. I've never seen this guy in my life. For whatever reason, we didn't have him in our scouting report. He just got promoted. So I say to John, the bat boy, I said, John, who the hell is this guy? Now, this man on first and second, tied game 5-5, top of the seventh inning. In Papelbon, we couldn't hit him, and it was important for us to get some runs here. 2 outs, top of the seventh. I say, John, who's this guy? Oh, his name is so-and-so, and he just got called up from AAA. I said, what does he have? He has a fastball, he has a slider, his best pitch is a split. Okay, fastball, slider, split. So now I'm computing.
The bad boy's telling you this.
Yeah, I'm putting my game plan together. So now I'm walking to the plate, and you're John, and I have my routine. I take my 2 swings, and John says, hey, Alex. And I turn around. I go, yeah, John. He goes, one more thing. He was playing golf, and he messed up his elbow, and he's not allowed to throw the split.
Are you kidding?
So now I'm walking to the plate. I go, double take. I said, are you sure about that? He goes, 100%. And I had built some rapport with John, and I knew he was really smart, and he wasn't just guessing. I said, so you're sure? I asked him the second time. So now the count is 1-1. Slider, 1-1. If he was regular, the data says he would throw a split. I step out of the box, and I hear John again. I look at him. He throws me a fastball, 3-run homer to center field.
That is tremendous.
And John has no idea what happened. Right? He's a big Red Sox fan. He has no idea what information he gave me. When we left, we were going to Baltimore. I gave him $500.
Yeah. That's it?
The next time we came to town, I gave him my usually 100, and he goes, what happened? I said, don't worry about it, long story. But when you give like supreme hitters a little bit of an idea, it's game, set, match.
Did baseball handle this as well as it could?
Look, in fairness to baseball, there's no precedent, right? So there's no other sport that deals with this kind of stuff. I think no matter how they handle it, we have to give them a pass, because now if it comes up again, I hope they would do even a better job and they learned from their experience. But it's tough for me or anybody to sit here and go, oh, they should have done this or this or that. It's an imperfect world, and what we like to do is you like to see positive movement in the future.
For years when you played in the game, Rule 21's hanging on the wall. Rule 21 in the Major League rules prohibits any gambling on baseball. If that crush of battered people in the street are sports executives, battered people running to take gambling money, which they have. I'm sure you have gambling ads, right? Do you have a sports book in the arena in Minneapolis?
Not yet.
Yeah, there's one right across the street. I was in Phoenix a couple of weeks ago. It's right there. Baseball, of course, has the 1919 World Series. Are you comfortable with gaming around both a sport you have an interest in and the other sport that you spent your life in?
Well, I think is a little bit like social media. That train's already left the station. And you want to create guardrails where you have economics that the players can benefit from, the owners, and even the fan base. Whoever a shareholder is, it shouldn't be done in a black market. It should be commercialized, and it should be covered by the SEC, and it should be something that is more formally done. So I'm in favor of doing it collectively versus trying to ignore it, and it's happening anyways.
It is amazing the way the leagues have just pivoted, though. Gambling was the devil 5 years ago.
100%.
And suddenly it's a revenue stream.
Pete Rose was ahead of his time.
Yeah. Exactly. We're gonna begin taking questions. We have microphones, I believe, on both sides of the room. And so if you have questions for Alex, you can queue up there and begin to think about what you'd like to talk to Alex about. And we'll get to you in just a second. But Alex, I'm told that our very first question is coming from outside the house. In fact, it may be coming from outside the country. Let's watch and listen.
Hey, what's happening? This is Big Pop right here, my boy A-Rod. I know that you are right now at the Seton Hall University, working always busy. I'm at the beach, chilling out, getting some sunshine. I think my skin needs some sun. What do you think? But I had a question for you, brother. Did you ever regret not coming to the Red Sox in 2004? You ever thought about us whooping your ass? Let me know.
Darth Vader. I love it. And he certainly doesn't need more sun. No, you know, Poppy and I go back. A lot of people don't know this. He started for Seattle, and his name wasn't David Ortiz or Big Poppy. It was David Arias. And he's just been always such an amazing friend of mine. In 2003, I was this close from getting him to come to Texas, and we couldn't get that deal done with Tom Hicks. So he went to Boston, and then he was recruiting me to go to Boston. And why I thought it could have been an interesting proposition, I grew up watching Magic against Bird, and I think it could have been really cool, Yankees, Red Sox, A-Rod, Jeter, A-Rod. And yeah, I just thought there could have been a really cool thing. I like the wall would have probably been a fun thing to hit it. And then to play with my good friend, Big Poppy. But no, I have no regrets. Being a New York Yankee is the greatest decision of my life. And it was like, it was like Mount Rushmore for me to play for George Steinbrenner.
A lot of people ask, what's it like working with him? Like everybody thinks there's a rub, there's an anxiety. And I'm just curious if you could share with everybody here what makes David, like what is his superpower in your opinion?
You know, that's a great question, Bardia. Big Poppy simply said is the Magic Johnson of baseball. The greatest Yankee fans, they'll tell you, yeah, I like Big Poppy. I'm like, how does that work? What do you mean you like Big Poppy? He goes, yeah, I don't know. It's hard to not like him, but he killed us. He just has this incredible, infectious attitude about life and energy. There's a sincerity. He's genuine. And I got to tell you, being at Fox with him, you know why he was such a great player. Because the guy understands the big moments. He loves the camera. He knows when that green light is on. But what's great about him, he's exactly the same with the green light on or not. He is Big Poppy all the time, and that's why television loves him. But I love him like a brother. He's now in Miami, and we spend a lot of time together off camera as well.
That's great. Can't promise we'll get to everybody. We will try. We've got 2 minutes. Let's begin over here. Identify yourself and ask your question.
Hi, I'm Dr. Danielle Zanzolari. I am an assistant professor of economics here at Stillman, and I played college softball, actually, for Seton Hall. So my question to you is about business. Woo, softball. So you have become a really accomplished businessman. You've been working on optimizing your businesses. You've talked a lot about that today, which is fantastic. What is your next big business goal? You talked about speaking it out loud. I know obviously you want to keep investing. You want to optimize your team in Minnesota. What is your next goal, business-wise?
I think for me the goal is always to collaborate with great people. I say that I have 2 big functions at my company. Number 1 is to go and find the best people in the world and bring them to A-Rod Corp. And number two is to create a really great, fun culture. And I would say the next step for us is probably becoming a little bit more institutional. We've deployed well over $500 million over the last, call it, 5 years. And that's been done more with our LPs who are family offices, really taking that to the next level and go a little bit more institutional.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Let's try over here.
Hi, I'm Christian. Thanks for coming here. My question is, for you now being on the baseball side of everything and you're working with the Timberwolves and owning that team, how would you see that baseball better market themselves more that you've taken away from the NBA?
You saying in reference to me or in reference to
the
baseball?
Timberwolves? And so towards baseball, how would you see baseball market themselves more like the NBA?
Like what lessons can baseball take from the NBA? You know, I think what the NBA has done a great job in is they've invested a tremendous amount of resources to marketing their players. Again, that goes back because you have an alignment and a system that works hand in hand, right? Owners and players are completely lockstep, and they want to grow this thing together. So it's very easy if Bardia calls a player in the NBA that they're going to work together. That's a challenge in baseball. So when you have that challenge, you know, how do you grow a pie together if you're going to kind of be locking horns? A simple example, if Bardia says to ex-player in the Major League Baseball, hey, would you guys come out and, do this for us at the stadium? The answer may be, I got to talk to the union or maybe pay me $100,000. And you're like, but we're going to go take care of a kid that maybe has cancer or is maybe a feel-good story where you're going to do something good. That this really shouldn't be an exchange or a transaction. It's just a transaction that makes everybody feel good and better. Even those small challenges, and should be pretty easy, is very challenging. So I just think working more together and thinking more big picture about how to grow the game. And then obviously revealing stories. Major League Baseball has the greatest opportunity today than I've seen over the last 3 or 4 decades. And that's, I've never seen better young players collectively under the age of 22 or 23 years old. That's an incredible competitive advantage. So the job should be is we should let the world know how good they are as players and as people and get that story out there.
Wouldn't you love to be Juan Soto right now? Oh, my Lord, what a future that young man's going to have. Incredible. Question over here.
Hi, I'm Ariana, huge fan, by the way. So I wanted to bring up the Bellinger situation and kind of get your thoughts. So given your career and your experience, what's your thoughts on like Bellinger's performance this season? Do you think it's mental? Do you think his swing needs to be redone? I just want to hear your thoughts.
You mean Bellinger the past year?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, one thing that we have in common, you know, you take a guy like Jose Altuve, right, who's smaller, or Pete Rose, that's a little bit on the smaller side. I've always thought that it's so much easier to be consistent when you're shorter. You have small arms, more simple things. When you're 6'4", like a Bellinger or a Strawberry, there's a lot more that can go wrong. And there's a lot of moving parts. And we broke down his swing quite a bit. There's a lot of movement. I think what Bellinger needs to do is get back to his old stance, which is a little bit more grounded, a little bit more stable. And he is so strong naturally that less is more. And I think the more you quiet your swing, the better he'll be. But I'm very, very bullish on Bellinger. I would not be surprised if he, performs at an MVP level this year.
Should have brought you a bat. You could have done
Yeah,
a demo for us.
we're waiting for a demo.
Exactly. Go ahead.
Thank you. First off, I just wanted to say thank you to Bob. 4 years ago, my freshman year in the same building, you took 5 minutes out of your day when Adam Silver was here to tell me about life and just career aspirations. So I'll always remember that conversation, so thank you. My question for Alex is, what was the strategy to try to build your brand around our generation, try to get new fans, specifically with the Court podcast, working with Big Cat, and what was kind of the result you learned from that?
You know, I'd love to take credit, but I had nothing to do with it. You know, I always feel that when you hire great people, I believe that A's bring other A's and B's bring C's. So I brought a Super A called Jeff Lee, who's a great friend and partner to the firm, and he talked to me about Barstool. And at the time, I was like, well, I've heard of it, but explain it to me. And he basically said, like, this is CNN, this is NBC, this is ABC for all college students. And I said, wow, that sounds pretty cool. And that was kind of the birth of my podcast. And when I travel around, people often talk about, like, you know, the Corp or Dan, and it's just got this really amazing following. But again, that was a result of me having great people on my team. It had very little to do with me.
Yes.
Hey, Rod, huge fan. My name is Waleed. I'm an MBA student here. Obviously, you've been involved in buying a team now. You've been in the process with the Mets before. Besides capital, obviously, what are like some of the biggest constraints and like difficulties with buying a franchise?
That's a great question. And, you know, this is one that is counterintuitive, right? We talked about from age 20 to 30, go and find the best mentor you can. You know, when you go to buy a car, the first thing you're doing, especially our parents, they're great negotiators, right? Like, I would go with my brother to Sears, and they would say, you know, it's $500 for the refrigerator. It was a young lady, very nice. And my brother would say, yeah, but I'm going to pay you in cash. And the young lady's like, yeah, it's still $500. Nah, I'm going to pay you in cash. I'm like, Joe, it's $500, right? Sometimes the most important thing one of the most important lessons that I've learned in business is you got to learn when not to negotiate. And sometimes you got to say, I'll take that deal. And I give credit to my partner, Mark Ley. When you get the macro right, and the macro right is you have an industry that has 30 teams. 3 of them are over $6 billion. The average franchise is 2.7. The new TV deal is up in 25, which should probably double or triple. The number's 1.5. Now, there's been 10 groups that have failed before us. We basically said yes to everything Glenn Taylor said, and we signed a deal. Because if you think about it, if we're right about the 1.5 going to 5 billion, what does it matter if we have a suite or tickets? And if 10 deals went wrong, it was probably collectively under $20 million, right? It was about little nuances that doesn't really matter. And I think sometimes we get so caught up in trying to win every edge. I have 90% rule at A-Rod Corp is if I can take 100%, I'm gonna do it for 90. I'm gonna leave some on the table for you, and let's go out and do another 9 more deals. Because we want to do more things with fewer people, right? So that's, again, part of building the reputation. As a young man, I had Scott Boras. The thought was, let's go out and get 160%. And you piss everybody else in the room. You got a few extra dollars, but you'll never get another deal done. And I found and that's not a knock against Scott. He's very, very good at his job. My personal, right, as I kind of grow up, is I feel that I'm okay with 90. Let's just go do a bunch of them together.
That what you said when we were talking. You said when you were negotiating with Glenn, you asked Glenn, what are the 3 things that are important to you? Mm-hmm. And you work backwards from there.
That's right. That's right.
You'd have to try to lose money as a pro sports owner as far as equity of the team, right? I mean, it's like betting on the sunrise.
Yeah.
But I mean, the difference being you've jumped in with all 10 digits and very much involved, which is, you know, you could easily sit back and watch that thing appreciate, right? But you're in it to win it.
It's a passion thing, right? Like,
yeah.
I'm going to put in the same effort today, the same effort with Fox. You know, Bardia and I are always joking around because the month of October, we're together the whole month because we're covering the postseason in baseball. And I can't tell you the amount of times that we're going back and forth at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning talking about something we should talk about the next day on television or a demo about Bryce Harper or Bellinger. And my effort has nothing to do with the pay. And sometimes, like, the next generation thinks, show me the pay first, and then I'll work backwards and I'll give you the effort. Put in the effort. Go the extra mile. Put out great work. Help people. I always tell people, when you walk into a meeting, be on time, bring a notebook. If you work in my company and you show up at a meeting late and you don't have a notebook and a paper, you're going to be thrown out of the meeting. And I've done that many times. You got to be prepared. You got to be respectful. Do not take notes on your phone, because what that's telling me is that you're texting somebody. Do not do that, right? And these things will pay great dividends. How can I, and one of the questions that we always ask, what can I do to be helpful to you? Immediately, you change the tone of the room, right? What can I do to be helpful? And then follow through. When the meeting's over, okay, so here are my 3 things I'm going to follow up on. 1, 2, 3. I think we did that with Bob and Bardia and that, right? And you start taking kind of control of your, a lot of the young people want to know, how do you take your brand? Follow up, right? That email goes, don't be so busy on Snapchat and DMs and all that. Get your emails in, get them out, be religious, be respectful, and do your thing.
I always tell the story after we met with you. John Evans, who was my boss at the time, we're flying back, and we got an email from you. Just a simple, hey, thanks for flying in New York, meeting with me. I turned to John, and he was in first class, so I kind of yelled.
Oh, the bitterness.
Yeah. And I was just like, we don't even get thank you notes from PAs who we interview for freelance jobs, and here's Alex emailing us, thanks for taking the time to come meet with us.
As you said, with the handwritten thank you note, which is an absolutely lost art and carries great weight. Yes. That effort, and that sincerity carries weight.
I want to say one great compliment about Bob. Bob, the young kids today, they have Barstool, they have ESPN, Fox. There's so many platforms where you can get your news from. Most of them get them online from their phones. Bob he had a monopoly, right? Like, we as kids had to go to Bob for the news every night of sports, and it was wonderful. But I'll never forget this, and this is kind of a lesson of being measured. And this won't be very popular because today the payoff is on who is most radical, and that's who's going to get the most views. But I'll never forget this. In my darkest hour, I'm serving my suspension, and everybody's just taking, hits after hits, one cheaper than the other. No, I deserved it. I screwed up. It's all on me. So now here comes Bob, and I see my name, and I see my face next to Bob. And
you're wincing, yeah.
And Bob just gives us the news. And he doesn't put, not an ounce of mayonnaise, not an ounce of butter on it. Nothing smart, nothing. And at that time, the news, I call that a par, acted like an eagle for me. Because I was like, wow, here's a guy that had me in a platter. He could have just slapped me across the face, and he had the power of restriction not to do it. And that meant the world to me, and my mother. So when Bardia said Bob, I said, I'm in for that reason.
Yeah. He didn't even ask when. He's like, done.
I appreciate that. But, we talk about how standards in journalism have been redefined, platforms have grown, and that's the reason for our center, to try and teach folks that, just the facts matter. Just finding the facts over the last 5 years in the American media is tough enough. I appreciate your kind words. I think we have time for one more question over here. Go right ahead.
Hello, guys. My name is Zachary Coates. I'm a student here in the Stillman School. First off, to Mr. Lee, welcome back to Seton Hall. This question is for Mr. Lee and Mr. Rodriguez. Mr. Lee, you've worked with ESPN and Outside the Lines and everything like that. Mr. Rodriguez, you work with ESPN and Fox Sports, from working with Mendoza, Vasgersian, to Frank Thomas, Ortiz, and everybody in between. Who's one person that you guys can both take away from working with and just taking that into your business lives and personal lives as well?
Wow. The best part of my 40 years at ESPN were the lifelong friendships. And I don't want to say one person. I will say it truly was a family. Now we're at the age where we're meeting at funerals. And it happens, but everyone gathers like a gathering of eagles. Someone passes away or someone significant other passes away. People come in on a day's notice from around. And maybe be so fortunate to work, be on a team, work in a company, be in an enterprise or a startup, that those bonds form. Because you know what it's like. You know everybody who's on that trophy from 2009, right, with you. They can't take that away from you, and that's a bond you'll have forever.
Yeah, hard to top that, and I echo everything Bob says. It's really all about relationships, but I'll give you kind of more of a fun one of people that I'm in awe of. Two that just jump off the page for me are Kevin Burkhart, who's our quarterback on a pre- and post-game show. And what's impressive about Kevin, he has a little bit of Bob and a little bit of Al Michaels in him, is where I'll never forget as a young boy, I was watching the World Series when the Oakland played the Giants. You weren't born yet, probably. And the earthquake happened. And Al Michaels turned from a sports broadcaster to an ABC anchor. And I said, holy smokes, it was flawless. And that skill, in baseball, we call that a 5-tool player. In broadcasting, I may have like half of one. So when you see a 5-tool player and you say, I could never do that, that's like watching Shaq dunk the basketball. That's just very special and out-of-body experience. Kevin Burkhart has that same attributes, where we've gone into some serious stuff, and Bardia says in my ear, please do not talk now. And I tell him after, you don't have to tell me, trust me, I know.
It's really more for Ortiz.
Well, if it's serious, I don't talk, no.
Kevin Burkhart went to my high school.
Did he really?
Yes, he did.
I mean, you're talking about one of the greatest people that I've ever met. Like, Bardia has become a very close and dear friend, and anytime I have wins, he's the first one to text me. He just got a big promotion to do the Joe Buck job for Fox. Of course, I sent him a nice note and couldn't be happier for him. Here's a guy talking about dreams come true, a Jersey guy selling cars, and now is one of the biggest stars in sports media. Couldn't happen to a better guy.
Great. What we'd like to do now, BJ, we're going to have a few tokens of our appreciation.
Yes.
Presented to Alex.
Yes, thank you, Bob. At this time, I'd like to call up a pair of Seton Hall softball players. So would Marissa Pla and Miranda Aruda please come up to present Alex with a special gift.
Hey, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Oh, wow, thank you, thank you. Oh, wow, thank you. Let me see if I can crack one up. Oh, take a little picture. Like I tell Bardia, if it's free, give me 3.
Yeah. It's in every clubhouse, baby.
Oh, it's for my girls.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Very cool. Do you want to take a picture?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to hold it? Great. Oops.
It's like he signed with Seton Hall, Alex. I love it.
Yeah. You got any eligibility on it?
Thank you, guys. Yes.
Thank you, ladies. We're not done yet. Now I'd like to call up a pair of Seton Hall baseball players, Bobby Shepard and Alex Clyde, to present another token of our appreciation.
Yes, sir. Nice to meet you. Yes, sir. Oh, nice. Let's see if this fits.
Nice, come over.
No, I feel like I really signed with you.
Yeah.
They're going to throw me out of the board at the University of Miami. All right.
We don't like Miami.
We'll do one over here with the 13. That's cool.
For the gram, for Ash.
All right, all right. Thank you, guys.
No problem.
Very cool. All right.
Thank you, gentlemen. Finally, Alex talked a lot about having dreams and belief in yourself. And as we said at the beginning, we all watched with amazement and had the whole country rooting for St. Peter's and Shaheen Holloway. And they say you can come home again, and he's come home with us. So we are so proud to be joined by our new men's basketball coach, Shaheen Holloway. Shaheen, please come up.
Good, that's good, that's good. Congrats, congrats. Welcome home, brother. It's good to see you.
What'd you think
Congrats,
of St. Peter's?
I mean, incredible. I watched a little bit. You know what was my favorite part? His press conference. They said, were you guys intimidated? He goes, I coach a bunch of kids from New York, right? Like, that was just an amazing quote. Congrats, congrats.
Hey, let's get a picture with Alex and Shaheen. Give it up for Shaheen and Alex.
Now, you got to bring me to a game, Bardia.
Yeah, I think we can work out that.
All right.
We know the owner.
All right.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you all.
Let's give it up one more time for Alex Rodriquez. Thank you. We all asked that you still stay seated while Alex leaves the room, so thank you for coming today. What a wonderful evening it's been. Thanks to Bob Ley, Bardia Shah-Rais, all of the students that made this happen, especially our students at PSN. So stay tuned for our next event under the Center for Sports Media. Have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you.